We all know by now that Facebook memories is full of stuff that we don't care to remember. Old posts with bad grammar, selfies with pack hair and leave outs, fake friends, exes, ooh child, just terrible. But recently, Facebook gave me something that I don't mind looking back on, so let's get into it.
And so I made the move, I bumped her but I played it cool. DJ dropped Beyonce, I asked her who she catered to. She said I'm single boo, I just hope you single too. But I ain't tripping, I'm just out having a drink or two.
In the year of our Lord 2016, I made a Facebook post that said, "Nothing scares me more than when someone says, you're gonna marry the man you least expect." Now, why in the world would I be excited about that? There has to be a reason why he'd be the last person I'd expect. Then I began to think of every person I would least expect. So it looks like I'll be marrying that man with no teeth and a cardboard sign. In 2020, I have additional and slightly different thoughts. When I would hear this phrase in the past, I tried to deal with it in the literal sense of the words, the man I'd least expect. So that could easily mean someone I would have no reason to have a foreseeable future with. That could be a total stranger, a serial killer, or some other type of criminal. Not the type of criminal that's targeted and victimized by our justice system, but a real sinister character like
the hat-slinging slasher.
So it seemed obvious that I wouldn't marry someone like that, but that isn't what the phrase meant. What it actually meant was something that was a bit more challenging than what I was ready for. The truth of that statement is the person that we end up with could be unlike the person that we've dreamed up or envisioned for ourselves. So that statement itself challenges the bars that we've set or the boxes that we've put in place to define the one. So the idea of someone that we least expect sounds like a deviation from the characteristics that we've put together in our dream person, and that in itself could sound like settling. But in actuality, it may not be a compromise of the core values we like. It just challenges the expectations that act as a gatekeeper to getting to know someone. For example, there may be someone who would treat you exactly the way you want to be treated, but they're not the person that you would give a first or second look to in a crowd. In fact, if they approached you, you wouldn't even give them the time of day because they don't meet the superficial expectations that you have for someone. And I get it, because being attracted to someone is very important. I mean, I know it's what's on the inside that counts, but how deep do I have to dig before I see something that I like? Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't have expectations or standards for our significant other, spouse, or potential life partner. But we may find that what we want is not necessarily what we need, or what you desire may not come in the package that you wanted. You may have wanted a Tiffany's box, but you end up getting a cardboard box. But if you dare to open the cardboard box, you may find that there's a Tiffany's box hiding inside. And I think a perfect example of that is Steve and Laura from the sitcom Family Matters. And actually, I'm of the group of people that believe that Steve should have been with Myra. She's the person that always loves him for who he was, whereas Laura only wanted to deal with him when he completely changed himself into Stefan. But at the same time, Myra was in a relationship with a guy who always loved and prioritized some other woman. So in actuality, Myra deserved better. But that's another story. Regardless of who we felt Steve should have ended up with, we know that at the end of the story, him and Laura ended up together. But I think that's a prime example of Laura ending up with the person she least expected. Of course, she grew up with Steve and he became like a normal part of her life and her surroundings, but he was not what she probably envisioned for herself. And we know throughout the show, Laura was this very sought after woman, this very beautiful character, and she had her share of guys and dates. You know, we saw her character date around, but at the end she ended up picking Steve, and he was the person that she would least expect, in the sense that he had always been there, but she had always overlooked him. She felt like there was nothing within him that she personally wanted. Again, we always know that she only dealt with him when he became the opposite of everything that he was, but in the end she found everything in this very person that was always right there among the things that really annoyed her the most. So she least expected it, but that's where she ended up finding her forever love. And so I think that's the challenging part of the notion of the man that you least expect. When I would hear that, it would make me concerned, because it's like, dang, who am I overlooking? Who have I friend zoned or sidelined? Because for whatever reason, I may not have been necessarily comfortable with the idea of a long-term future with this person because of, I guess, boundaries or standards that I had personally set, which essentially is the point that I'm getting to. A lot of times it's that type that we've developed for ourselves that acts as a gatekeeper for who we get to know and essentially who we have the potential to love. And so the person that's really meant for us, a lot of times we kind of, what's the word? I guess we kind of create barriers for ourselves to even get to know this person because they don't necessarily check a box. And that box is usually pretty superficial. You know, like, he got to be dark skinned, he got to be 6'2", he got to be muscular, he got to drive this, work there, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of times, the people that share the ideologies that we want them to have, the people that will connect with us on an emotional level and carry out the ideals and beliefs that we want for ourselves, sometimes maybe in the person that we don't give ourselves the space and time to get to know because they're not that type. For example, so like I said, if I want this guy that's 6'2", dark skin with muscles, but I want him to pay all my bills and believe that a wife should be this, this, and that, he may not be with it. But the guy that agrees with that wholeheartedly, he might be 5'8", light skin with a slim frame. So if you saw this guy walking past you, you wouldn't even give yourself the chance to even get to know this guy, to even realize that he may be everything that you say that you wanted, everything that you're describing to other men and begging them to be. And please, I'm saying men because I'm speaking from my perspective, but make the pronouns whatever you need them to be to fit you. But if I don't give myself the opportunity to get to know this person simply because they don't check superficial boxes, then I'm ultimately depriving myself of the very type of person that I say that I want. But quite honestly, that is the person that I least expect based off the expectations and the standards that I've set. Now, being a woman, especially a black woman, I know a lot of times it feels like we're always asked to compromise and lay our expectations and our standards down by the riverside just for the sake of having someone. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is I think we should just reevaluate, or at least keep an open mind, not necessarily reevaluate. Hold fast to what it is that you want. Like, establish your deal breakers, I guess, at the core. Because a lot of these things, again, can be kind of superficial, but there are also things that we can stand to kind of budge on. For example, do he gotta be 6'2"? Do he gotta be 6'2"? Like, how different would our life be if we go for 5'11" or 5'10" instead of 6'2"? I mean, yeah, he might need a step stool to reach the top of the cabinet, but if there are mechanisms to help us get whatever it is at the top of the cabinet that we need, and he can still come down and love you and be all the man you need beyond that point, like, is it that much to budge on? And if he's still taller than you with your heels on, like, can we just accept it? You know? Is that something we can kind of compromise on? Now, stuff like abuse and stuff like that and financial security, we ain't compromising on that stuff. That's just a no-go. I said stuff at the core. We're talking about superficial things that maybe we might can budge on to be. You're talking about like, he need to be muscular, this and that. Well, maybe he ain't got all the muscles right now, but can you work out together? You know, like, it was a scary thing to hear that you may end up with the person that you least expect, because I know I personally had this clear vision of the type of person I felt that I wanted. it's just something about like eating your words, and I would never date this kind of person, or he ain't my type, he ain't what I want, and then turning around and seeing all your situations fail with the person that you perceived as the better one, and then kind of having to like swallow your pride and go to the very person, you know, that you once vowed that you never would. And I guess that's why you should be very careful what you say and mindful of how you treat others, because you'll never know where you'll find yourself and who you'll find yourself with. And it's kind of funny, like people have this running joke of like how you like somebody back in the day and they don't like you back, they dish you, but now later on in life you up and they either out of shape and got all these kids that have been like ran through and had all these trials and tribulations, and now they want you and they presenting themselves with like all this baggage and stuff based off the strength of who they used to be, and now you don't want them. It's like, I forgot where I was going with that. Think about the guys that you pretty much vowed that you would not date and that you would not end up with, but to think that they would be the very person to give you everything that it is that you say you want and everything that you feel you deserve, is just kind of like biting a big old bullet. Now, of course, that's just a superficial way of thinking, because of course if you can get past that, then there lies everything that you want, and there can't be anything bad about that, like being treated the way you want to be treated, being loved the way that you deserve, being praised, and you know, just receiving the love and care that's healthy and that you're worthy of, and the type of love that's easy to reciprocate because it just comes naturally. That's a dream, but it's just the idea of getting out of our own way and allowing that type of love to flourish with someone that we probably didn't plan on doing it with, but understanding that if we gave them that chance, we wouldn't regret it. Now, how you get to that point, you on your own, because, child, I don't even know. I'm sure it's people right now in the friend zone that could be my husband, child, and give me everything that I'm begging Tyrone for. Ain't no Tyrone, but you know. Check your friend zones, check your DMs, and see if that person is up in there, the person you least expect, the person you never vowed you respond to, the person whose message you look at and you be like, do that even make sense? Look at you, look at me. But you might need to take a second look, you know, depending on how stuff is going. And you know what? I know I gave the example of Steve and Laura, but I also think about like the Russell, Sierra, and Future, because I don't know if Sierra envisioned herself with a Russell. But actually, you know what? I don't even know why people make that comparison, because first of all, people say Russell lame, but yeah, first of all, he ain't ugly. He's just as big of a star as Future. Both of them got money. It's like, child. But people be saying you be trying to get a Future to treat you like Russell, or you be looking for Russell qualities in a Future. So I don't know if Russell was the kind of guy that Sierra least expected. But if that's the case, let me wipe my expectations away then, if that's gonna give me a Russell, because child, I'm tired of being bold. We just need to think about that guy we least expect, because that one guy that we least expect could be the key to everything we ever imagined. Think about that, y'all.
I just want
Okay.
you right now. Nothing
Yeah.
else matters right now. Can I get you by yourself somehow and show you how I really get down? I just wanna show you where I live, baby. We can talk and chill, baby girl.
First of all, like, this camera is a whole hater, okay? I'm in charge. I bought you. I'll take you back. Hold on. The swap won't let me be great. Stay. And action. We all know by now. She was rattling. Again. We have this guy. He's like 6 feet something tall. Well, if you 6 feet something, you tall. Ooh, child. 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 He's just as big as a star. Now, being a woman. Ooh. Okay. Because I ain't got all night to sit here. The truth of that statement is that the person we may end up with is But what it does mean is that when I would hear that phrase from Mama Hearns, it ain't no secret. Bad selfies. Let's try it again. Ready? Okay. Regardless of who Steve should have ended up with, regardless of who, the truth of that statement is that the person we may end up with is the boxes that we put in place to define the one may challenge the very things, blah, for our significant other, spouse, life partner, what have you. What it does mean is that what we may, listen, Jesus. But that's all, folks.